skills will be moderated by Prabhu Goel, and will be an interview with Rahul Narayan. So why don't you take over?
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much. So good afternoon and welcome to you all. I'd like to introduce to you Mr. Rahul Narayan. He's the CEO of a space company out of India. It's the first space company that I believe, private company that's launched out of Asia. And what it appears to be targeting is causing the same kind of disruption in satellite costs, the costs of building and launching satellites, as SpaceX is doing in launching stuff to the space station and others. So they do not come up with the launching technology, but they are actually in the business of providing the Earth orbiting satellites and so on. The interesting thing about the challenges that they face will become very evident when he describes to you some of the details of this PR exercise. I call it a PR exercise, though I think it's also a technology validation exercise. They're competing for the Google Lunar X Prize that's worth $20 million for putting a rover on the moon. And that rover is going to travel 500 meters on the moon and is going to take high-D images and play them back to Earth in real time, in addition to being the first one to land on the moon, first privately funded company to land on the moon. This is the challenge that Rahul and his company have taken on. I'm not sure that when you think of the effort that they've undertaken, I can't imagine too many startups that have to overcome as many obstacles as this company is going to have to overtake. So I thought they were very fitting for this particular session. So to start with, I'd like to have Rahul give us a brief overview of his company. They call themselves Team Indus because this effort going after the Google X Prize is really a team effort. They call it Team Indus, but it's the name of the company is different. And Rahul, why don't you give us a quick overview of your company?
Thank you, Prabhu, for those kind words. Team Indus was conceived 4 years ago. We started off with the objective of trying to create, deploy assets in space which help expand the ability for businesses, for system integrators to be able to access information in real time, data in real time. When we started off, we were just a bunch of 4 people. Now we've grown to be about a dozen retired ISRO scientists, 50 full-time engineers, and we're based out of Bangalore. We are also the only team registered for the Google Lunar X Prize from India, and we were recently shortlisted in the top 3 of the competition itself.
Thank you, Rahul. So as part of the shortlisting, Rahul's team actually won a $1 million prize from Google. It's one of the milestone prizes. There were 3 other teams in there, and Rahul's team, out of 20 other teams that competed, was the one that was selected in the first 3 to win that $1 million prize. So I think that was quite an accomplishment, and
thank you. Yeah, so this was called as the Milestone Prize, and yes. This was announced in late 2013. We had to submit, we had to submit our risk mitigation strategies, our development and verification plan, and an independent jury shortlisted us in the top 3 for the competition itself. They gave us about a year to build the hardware. So you have a design, and then you have to actually build it, get it off the design board, and put it onto the workshop floor. Last December, we completed the prototype. So we have a real spacecraft weighing 600 kilograms in our office, which actually qualified for launch loads, touchdown loads, all the stresses that the spacecraft would experience on its journey to the moon, including the autonomous navigation system that would help it to touch down without hitting an obstacle when it comes to the lunar surface. So that was our first big validation. It was an independent jury comprised of folks from NASA, ESA, Orbital Sciences, and the jury visited us in Bangalore. They spent 3 weeks over there, were present for all these tests, and they decided to award us $1 million for maturity in our ability to land on the moon. So it's the first $1 million, always very special for any company, and we just got that check in January of 2015.
So how many of us know startups that get launched with $1 million prize even before they've launched their product? So that's one of their companies. I think to a certain extent, as I think about what they're doing, it's a very audacious effort to be able to do this in a startup, Because when you think of the number of technologies that have to come together to make this happen, and not only just launch the product, but get it on the moon, get it safe, get the rover off the spacecraft and get it travel 500 meters, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of different technologies come together. So I think it's going to be an amazing melting pot of technologies that come together in this company. But for those of us who are interested in looking at investments, the typical questions we ask is, what is the size of the market you're looking at, and what's your business model like? How much do you think you can make for investors in your company?
So this is our flagship project that we're working on, all the technologies that you spoke about. Other than chemical engineering, I think we span across everything. So computer science, control systems, mechanisms, structures, instrumentation, all of that. The idea is that we build these capabilities. This is a fantastic peering point for us to attract talent, to attract partners who have been working with us, supporting this initiative. And basis this, we will be able to create the capability to develop satellites which are then deployed around Earth, and they deliver the data and information that all the data-hungry apps are looking for. Aerospace as a market is about $300 billion. We believe with our technologies, we'll probably be able to address a small single-digit percentage of that. Having said that, given the fact that we're based out of Bangalore, we will be able to turn things around faster. We'll be able to turn it around at a cost which is far more agreeable, therefore expand the market. So we are relying on our ability to expand the market from a few single-digit billions of dollars to double-digit billions of dollars over the next 3 to 5 years, and be one of the leading players over there.
Wonderful. So I hope they make the next billion-dollar company out of India on top of the 8 that are out there today. So let's talk about your competitive differentiators. Why do you think you'll be able to compete successfully on the model that you're talking about?
Right. So my background is software. All my life, I was running a software company until this happened 4 years ago. And we've imported a lot of what has made software the enabler. And even on the previous panel, Ramona was talking about how some of the methodologies that are used in software has made things so much more easier for normal people. We've applied the same philosophies. So satellite building, any kind of space hardware which was built previously used a relatively old style of working. We have completely modularized it. It works off a WBS, which is akin to software projects. The life cycle is very quick. The changes are it's not waterfall, but it comes very close to it. So it's the ability to be modular, which allows us to do things quickly and to deliver the outcome that we're looking for. Our second advantage, of course, is the fact that we're looking to scale this very rapidly. And given the low cost base that we start with, we will be able to very rapidly turn around assembly line, which can then deliver products and services for newer customers who are not able to afford the prices which the developed, companies in the developed economies offer, but will be able to afford these assets when we offer it out of India. So that's been our mainstay, and that's how we believe that we'll be able to beat the competition, lead the market, and break into newer markets.
So, India sent a mission to Mars at a cost that was a tiny fraction of what it costs some of the more developed countries to do space missions. How would you compare your costs of building satellites to those of your competitors?
It's actually an unfair comparison, but I'll still go ahead and make that comparison. So a similar mission, if it were to be done by, all these are respected names, and just using those names as placeholders to give you an order of magnitude. So a similar mission, if it were to be done by a NASA, it would cost you about $350 million. If it were to be done by an ISRO, that's India Space Agency, that'll be about $100 million to that magnitude. We attempt to come in at half of that. So we are a sub $50 million project, and it's in the nature of the way the company is configured. It's in the nature of the way that we've conceived this project and are managing it, that we believe we'll be able to come in at that price point.
And given that you'll be able to launch all these satellites, what opportunities do you think you enable for entrepreneurs that may be looking for space-based applications. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. New space, and there are a bunch of companies based out of Silicon Valley who have been pushing that envelope. We pick up from where they left off or where they're continuing to work. So the ability to have assets in space above ground, and I don't want to say non-terrestrial, so just say above ground. The ability to have assets above ground allows you to see a lot more, to monitor a lot many more things, whether it is IoT, whether it is shipping lines, whether it is movement of goods, logistics industry. There is a whole lot more that you can do if you're able to look at Earth from above the ground. These are platforms that we believe we are building. The moment these platforms come online, enterprises, app developers, system integrators will be able to leverage this data set and provide decision support systems, provide applications the way that they were not possible before because this data was just simply not available. I think this is going to be a great platform. I think the seeds have already been sown. There are already a few companies who are doing it. We intend to come in, be the platform, be the backbone, be the infrastructure, which enable far many more companies to leverage this data.
Very nice. And can you talk to us a little bit about the challenges or the obstacles that you've already overcome? And then please tell us about the ones that you see ahead in the next 2 years.
So all startups, and I'm sure that there are a lot of entrepreneurs here because this is a startup event, all startups face a classic catch-22. So you need to show progress to get money. You need money to show progress, right? We face a catch-222. So other than the progress to get money, money to get progress, we faced with the question with, are you nuts? And we get that pretty often. So that's what I call as a catch-22. So that's one of our biggest problems to start off with. On a more serious note, when we started this off, unlike any other software startup, it's not possible to start out of a small garage. So even our garage was a 5,000 square feet office. We had lots of expensive hardware there. Even the smallest starting team was was close to half a dozen people. So it wasn't just one person coding in pajamas. So scale is always going to be a challenge. The second challenge for us is even for us to even do prototypes, to even do design, there is always a government interface. There are always compliances. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of ITAR. There are always challenges that are thrown your way, which are curveballs. And until you get your hands dirty, you would not figure out how to solve them. So those are the second set that we had to solve along the way. Thirdly, and obviously, again, for any startup, it's very important that you be able to convince your constituency, and your constituency are, even before your customers come in, your employees, your mentors, your advisors, investors, potential investors, to keep convincing them that you're on the right path. And especially when the path is sort of new, there is no one right way of doing it, and you have to constantly sell. So selling constantly to people to get them on board has been one of the challenges. It was very difficult in the beginning. As we signed up more people, more partners, it's become relatively easier now.
So just to get a quick sense of what your initial revenues will be when you start selling your satellites past this moon launch that I think you're targeting to do it this next year, right? If I understand correctly?
That's the idea if we get the paperwork sorted out.
Yes, yes.
So we should be able to, the intent is to launch in the fourth quarter of next year. That's the planned launch date. That's where some great launch windows exist. We are already moving to establish the required assembly line to be able to leverage some of these technologies. So the target is within the next 2 to 3 years, we will have an assembly line that can crank out anything between 8 to 10 satellites a year. We're looking at a typical satellite going for anything between 10 to 15 million US. This is typically a high margin business. So we're looking at a 30 to 40% gross margin on these. So 3 years down the line, potentially $100 million revenue with potentially a $30 million bottom line.
Wow, that's a very exciting company already. So I would like to open the floor for a few questions. Okay, is there any questions from the floor? We don't have anything going on the iPad, so if there are any direct questions that we can take, I'm sure Rahul would be happy to answer them. Yes, go ahead, please. And speak loudly, and if we can't hear you too well, we'll try repeating the question.
Thank you.
So your question is, how did you go about assembling the team? And you said, great achievement, Rahul. I'll repeat that for everybody else's benefit.
Thank you so much. It's all startup style. So you look for the people who it's like Sudoku, right? So the first number you have to just guess and put it somewhere. So the first guy that you hire is a guy who fits your profile, you believe is going to be with you, you believe has the capability. So that's sort of where you start. And then we very quickly were a dozen people working full time. The first 6 months we tried to do part-time, do other things, come back, do this on weekends. That never worked. So very early on, we realized that either you do this well or you don't do it. And I wish I'd realized that earlier. We lost a good 6 to 9 months in that process. So we were very quickly up to a dozen people. We were very quickly focused on the engineering problems that we wanted to solve. All the dozen people are -1 to 3 years out of college. That's what we have on our team, had on our team. Right now we have many more. As long as we stayed focused, as long as we put our head down and this is something I say which is rather controversial. Vision is great for planning, but if every day you get up and say, what's my vision and how is that going to impact my work? That's not how it works. So vision is great. We're going to land on the moon and we're going to be the first private player to do it. Great to be excited about it. Great to do the planning. But every day, every morning you get in, it's about getting the next 2 tasks delivered. So a dozen people put together the blueprint, which included all designs, the full supplier network, the full risk matrix, the risk mitigation strategy, and the validation and verification plan. It took us, we were already motoring along, but this specific activity took us about 8 weeks. We did get our foot in the door at the last minute. The judges took another 6 weeks to review it, and then they announced us as a shortlist.
So Rahul, I'm going to cut you off over there. I'm sorry, there's so much more. I'm sure you could tell them. We're already over time. And I just wanted to let you know that Rahul is out there now raising funding for going further for his company. And I certainly will be very interested in looking at his company as well. That's why I'm so excited about what he's doing. And Rahul will be around. So if any one of you have any questions for him, please do not hesitate to reach out to him.
Thanks, sir.
And thank you very much, Rahul, for being here. Thank you.